This week's episode of Life Planning 101 originally aired in 2015. Please enjoy. Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services in Eastland, Texas. Tune in every week as we share important information to help you and your family live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, legacy and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the program Life Planning 101. As the nice announcer man mentioned, I'm Stace Gaddy, our special guest and expert from Kennedy Financial Services right here in Eastland, Angela Robinson. Good morning.
Good morning, as always, Stace. I'm real happy to be here this morning. And we're going to go ahead and start in on our subject today. We've got a great little show titled, Are You Taking Your Financial Supplements?
Okay.
Yes.
All kinds of supplements out there in the market, right?
That's right.
So financial supplements.
That's right. And you know, it's funny. One of the girls in our office is she's about to have a baby, and when she just got pregnant, she went to her doctor and she said, "Well, what supplements do I need to be taking?" And her doctor really couldn't even give her an answer. Just said, "Well, just take a good this and a good that, and you can kind of figure it out." And wow. I think right, and that's even just being pregnant. And I think all of us kind of feel that way. You know, there is so many supplements out there. What are the right supplements? What do we need to be doing? So at the last part of the show today, I'm actually going to give you those financial supplements, and we're going to talk about those. But first, before I do that, I want to tell you about an incident I had last week. We had a client in the office, and he is 83 years old and in extremely good health, very active. And we were talking about, just what does it take to be healthy and to actually have that type of lifestyle at his age. I mean, he could probably do anything that I could do. That's how healthy this man is. Yes. And, the thing is that we are all living longer.
Yes.
And, that seems to be a good thing, except for the fact that we're not necessarily living healthier than we've ever lived before. So really, it could be a double whammy to the worse, right? And that could also be the case with our finances. So that's kind of how this ties into this. But I want to tell you about something I learned from the Cooper Clinic. We actually went to a seminar that they did. And if you don't know the Cooper Clinic, they're up in Dallas, Texas. And Dr. Cooper himself is in his 90s, still practicing medicine. But this is the gentleman that invented aerobics. Okay, so
really?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, he did, and they are huge proactive medicine. They're huge on scanning people and healthy lifestyles and this and that. And when they came and did the talk, they gave a little scenario called squaring off the curve. And I want to share this with you this morning. And if you're not driving, if you are driving, do not take out a pencil or a pen, okay?
Right.
But if you aren't driving, I would encourage you to draw yourself a little vertical axis and a little horizontal axis, like an X and a Y axis that you learned in school. And at the bottom corner, you're going to write the age 30. And the reason why is because Dr. Cooper tells us that really is our peak of health. For most people, that's the best you're gonna get is at age 30. Stace is over here tearing up that I'm saying this, but he says that really for most people, it's the highest quality of life that we're gonna have. So if you go up your vertical axis there, put a dot at the very top at age 30, and then slowly just curve that off all the way out on that horizontal axis, and then and somewhere out there is death, right? And I don't know about you, but I've never really been motivated to live a long time. That's not why I want to stay healthy. But we do see, I kind of have incentive because we do see a lot of clients, and some that are in really good health, like the gentleman that I shared earlier, and some that are his age or younger that are in a much worse environment than that. And it's really about that quality of life. In the last 10 years of life, what do you want it to be like? Do you want to be able to get out and golf or dance at your grandchildren's wedding or volunteer in your community or your church, or you want to do those things? Or do you want to be sitting in a chair and not being able to do anything? And so what he talks about with squaring off the curve is that if we do, just a few things in life, and the number one thing is getting your heart rate up most days of the week for 30 minutes a day. That's what he says will do the most good for you of anything you do. Eat however you want, whatever. Just get your heart rate up 30 minutes a day most days of the week.
Aerobics.
That's aerobics, right? You're going to so-called square off the curve. So when we go back to that picture, you don't necessarily have a curve down. You kind of have a longer quality of life, and then it just drops, at some point in time. Mm-hmm. And that's what I want my life to be like. And, it was interesting. This morning I was reading my devotional, and there was a Proverbs I want to share with you. It says, good planning and hard work lead to prosperity, but hasty shortcuts lead to poverty. So that's going to be kind of our dropping line for what those financial supplements are going to be that we need to do to square off our curve financially, so to speak.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, more Life Planning 101. You keep it right here. Welcome in, folks, to the final segment of Life Planning 101 this week. I'm Stace Gaddy, our special guest and expert from Kennedy Financial Services right here in Eastland, Angela Robinson.
Yes, we've been talking about, are you taking your financial supplements? Actually, we haven't really talked about it. We've been more talking about your physical supplements, right? So we talked about in the first segment about Dr. Cooper, and he talks about squaring off that curve, so we don't just slowly die, and in the last 10 years of our life, it's a miserable time for ourselves and for our loved ones. But, doing those things like getting out and exercising or eating right, so that in those last 10 years of life, we really have a quality of life, the things that we want to be able to do. And I think that goes hand in hand with your money in general, your financial picture, because there's an old saying that, people spend more time planning for their vacations than they do their future. And there's a lot of truth in that.
Yes, there is.
There is a lot of truth in that. The funny thing is that what we mentioned at the beginning of the show is that we're living longer than ever before. So are you going to run out of money before you run out of life? If you do, what then?
Then what?
Then what? Are your kids going to have to take care of you? Do you want them to have to take care of you? Do they want to take care of you? Those are some big questions. Or what about just leaving your family in a financial mess after you're gone because you didn't have anything organized? I tell you what, we had a lady that we've been working with for a few years now, and her mom and dad passed within 6 months of each other. And because they didn't have anything organized, it took her almost 3 years to get the estate lined out. And she had two brothers that you would consider almost dysfunctional. They weren't much help to her at all. So here she was grieving on her own trying to do this. And it was very, very difficult for her. And she had to go through a lot of therapy because of it. And I think that's something we don't think about. We don't think about what's going to be left behind for our kids to deal with, or our grandkids to deal with, or even our spouse in some situations. And that's happened as well. We've had widows that when their husband dies, they come to us, they've said, well, we found this and we found this and this and this. And what do we do with it? We don't know. And they have to go digging through things to find certain things. And I think it's really important that we have all that in order. So, what are those financial supplements that you really need to be taking? And like we mentioned earlier, there's so many out there. There's so much to do. What do you really need to focus on? And so I'm going to give you these. And really there's 5 of them, but not all of them are an ongoing everyday supplement you need to take. There are some that are, okay? And the first, which many people don't like this word, but I want you to give me a minute when I say the word, because I don't mean it in a way that maybe you're accustomed to hearing it. And the first thing is your budget.
Okay.
And we all think of a budget that limits us, all right? And that's not really what a budget is about. A budget is just about knowing where you're at so that you can make decisions about your future. For instance, how do you know if you can afford to buy a certain vehicle if you don't know what you're currently spending and you don't know what you're currently bringing in?
You can't.
You can't. So that's what a budget is all about, is being able to know exactly where you're at so you can make decisions about your future. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a car, but, and here's one common mistake I see people make, and people think in terms of this year. What's happening this year? What do I need to take care of? And guess when they think about their taxes?
About January.
Yeah, about January, about right? Or if they file them in October, it's about September, right? For the last year. And then they
April 1st.
And then they call and say, what can I do? I had all this income back last year. How do I take care of this? Okay. And we think in terms of 1 year. And even if they're really good at planning for that year, they still aren't thinking about what is the next year or the next year and the next year. Because sometimes, it may be better, even though you think you're paying a lot in taxes this year, if your income's going to grow next year, you maybe need to think about avoiding writing some things off this year so you get a bigger tax break next year. But we don't think like that. We're always thinking about now. And that's the same thing with our budget. I think that's why people don't budget, is because they don't understand the power of that budget. But it really is like having a compass in your pocket at all time. It's going to give you direction in any which way to go. In fact, when we work with people, that's the number one thing that we ask for is what is your budget? Because we can't help them until we know exactly where their dollars are going every single month and what's coming in. So I think that's the biggest financial supplement you can take. Speaking of taxes, that annual income tax review is a big one. Are you paying too much in taxes? Are you paying too much in taxes? And I would say that 99% of our listeners are. Well, if you're paying too much in taxes, why are you paying too much in taxes? And that's what we don't usually think about. We usually just grumble and pay them and go on and then complain next year because, again, we procrastinated. So having an income tax review that talks about, okay, your tax year in 2015, 16, and 17. Let's go out and discuss your future, and let's figure out how to pay the lowest taxes over a 3-year period. That's really important. And like I mentioned, that's not necessarily a supplement you have to take every day, but it's a plan that you need to have in place that you're reviewing annually. And then there's something else that's really important that we often don't talk about a lot, and that's your insurance, okay? And the reason I say that's important is I want you to think about the structure of a pyramid. And if you get a crack in the bottom of that pyramid, where does that crack go?
It goes straight to the top.
That's right. So I want you to think about all your money sitting on top of that pyramid. How is it protected? That's what your insurance is for.
Your foundation.
That's your foundation, right? So even though we hate insurance, we hate paying it, you have to be able to look at that and know exactly what you're paying, why you're paying, and are you being smart about what you're paying? Do you have enough insurance? Are you paying too much for what you do have? So I think that's really important. Making sure that your debt is under control is another thing, right? And making sure you're paying your right debt. That's something we do with our clients we work a lot with. We don't necessarily think all debt is bad debt. There is good debt, but knowing the difference and knowing exactly how you're going to pay down that debt can be important. And then last but not least is that recipe for your investments. Making sure that you don't have all your eggs in one basket. Making sure that you're well diversified for your future, for that longevity of living too long. We're not in the business of hitting home runs and trying to be here in the next year or two. We're talking about your finances over the next 20 or 30 years. So I think that's really important for you to think about just those little supplements, those little things that you need to think about every single year. So email us any of your questions that you have. We love to be able to address those on the show. So make sure you email those, and we sure do appreciate all of our listeners and hope that as you're able to move forward in life, you're able to know that you've got a solid plan to be able to take care of your family and not leave a financial mess when you're gone.
Fantastic information as always. Thank you so much, Angela Robinson from Kennedy Financial Services here in Eastland. That's a wrap for today's edition of Life Planning 101. Tune in next time. You won't want to miss it. Here's the announcer with more.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. If you have questions, you can email them to lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. Don't forget to learn how our sister company can assist you with all of your tax, bookkeeping, and consulting needs. You can find out more at briscoeandassociates.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more Life Planning 101. The opinions expressed herein are those of the firm and are subject to change without notice. The opinions referenced are as of the date of publication and are subject to change due to changes in the market or economic conditions and may not necessarily come to pass. Any opinions, projections, or forward-looking statements expressed herein are solely those of the author, may differ from the views or opinions expressed by other areas of the firm, and are only for general informational purposes as of the date indicated. Securities offered through Calton & Associates Incorporated, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Smart Money Group LLC. Kennedy Financial Services and Smart Money Group LLC are separate entities and are not owned or controlled by Calton & Associates Incorporated.